For football in this country, 2 vintage Timmy Cahill goals helped Australia win a tense World Cup playoff against Syria, but they were completely overshadowed in the aftermath. When it emerged, coach Ange Postecoglou is set to quit. Whatever the result against Honduras next month, Ange won't go to another World Cup with his national team.
Australian soccer's been plunged into crisis.
Ange Postecoglou has reportedly made the shock decision to quit.
He'll stand down after next month's tie against Honduras.
Even if Australia qualifies for the 2018 World Cup.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock. Didn't expect it.
We're all kind of on our edge.
There's been a lot of hysteria.
It's just speculation.
I don't know whether it'll upset the players.
It's not affecting any players.
Wow. Everyone wants to go to a World Cup as a player, as a coach, so he must have his reasons why. He's got to come out and say it. Because we're just going to keep talking about it, writing about it.
Graham Arnold tops the list of potential coaching replacements.
No, not at all. Look, I've not spoken to anyone. At the moment, there's no job to be putting your hat in the ring for.
I think we concentrate on celebrating a 2-1 victory.
Cahill, there it is!
We're going to face it and deal with it and qualify for a World Cup if we can and do our country proud.
Those were the reactions. Let's go to an international coach of another sport, Lisa Alexander. After a win with a big prize, the World Cup just there, what is going on?
Oh, look, obviously Ange has had a word to somebody around the traps and it's got out. Look, national coaching can be very frustrating from times because you've got so many different stakeholders involved, and particularly I think definitely the football media in Australia appears to be quite parochial in their views, etc. So, you know, it does get annoying from time to time. It even annoys me in the netball stakes as well. So, but unfortunately, as national coach, you have a bigger picture, and the bigger picture is to get this team through to World Cup. All Australia wants that to happen as well, and I think Ange's obviously, in hindsight, would probably not have gone down this road, and certainly from other national coaches, it'll make me be very, very quiet about if I make any decisions, that's for certain.
Keep it to yourself until you want to announce it. Now, the timing, Waleed, what do you make of this? It can't be as simple as he's sick of people bagging him.
You would not think so. Before that, though, I'm still confused about how real this is. Right? He spoke to somebody, we assume. What was the nature of that conversation? Who was that person?
Well, it was reported in the press this week, and there's been ample time for Ange and, in fact, the Football Federation Australia to come out and say it's nonsense.
And they won't, right.
Yeah.
And I read the press conference during the week, in which both he and David Gallop raised it and then spoke about something else. So it looks that way, but it's just very strange. We have no explanation for what is going on, really. My guess, and all we can do is guess at this point, is that he's probably eyeing up some other bigger prize in Europe or something like that. And at that point, it would be very interesting because then Australia might actually realise that he's a seriously good coach if he's being poached in that way from countries overseas. As for the upcoming campaign, I think the worst time for him to leave would be now, I think. Right? So I think there's some talk that he should, if he's going to go, he should go now, let them get on with trying to qualify against Honduras, and then the World Cup assault belongs to that new coach. But there is enough of a gap, were they to get through, between the end of the Honduras games and the World Cup. We saw it with Holger Osick. He qualified and then there was a change of coach. Actually, we did okay at the World Cup without claiming any points. If he were to go now, then I think he puts the qualification in peril generally, and that would be the very worst thing to do. Yeah,
well, coaching to a World Cup, it can be a bit easier than coaching the full cycle. We saw that with Michael Checker and the Wallabies at the recent World Cup. Gideon, what does it do for the players to know now that Ange won't be their man in charge if they do get it through? Does it hurt our chances of beating Honduras in home and away?
Well, I mean, Honduras is going to be a pretty tough assignment anyway. At least they can't go to war with us like they did with El Salvador in 1969. But you know, we seem to have been hanging on by our fingernails throughout this qualification cycle. And I think going back to the point that Lisa made before, there is a degree of sort of magical thinking where international coaching is concerned. With a club, there is a sort of a recognition that, you know, that a coach can do well with ordinary resources. There's respect for that guy. There's respect for the coach who has a middling list who achieves excellent results. But where international sport is concerned, somehow We think we have this sort of patriotic self-delusion that somehow it's about where's the pride, where's the passion. But the same rules apply. You know, you can't make silk purses out of sow's ears. We had a terrific team in 2006. Probably none of the contemporary 11 would get into that side. We're ordinary now, and perhaps we've played above ourselves so far.
I think there's truth to that, but I think we should be careful overstating it, because I think part of the problem is they were so good in the Asian Cup, for example, and Ange Postecoglou had them playing in such a manner as to make them look like they were lording it over Asia. And then, and this is the one no one talks about, which really gets me, is did you watch them in the Confederations Cup? They had an ordinary first game, and then they clicked into gear, and they suddenly looked fantastic. And they started really taking it to quality.
With an attacking style, which we know Ange likes.
And so what I think we're seeing with Ange is he's always said all the way along he's not interested in qualification for the World Cup. That's not the goal. The goal is to build a style of play that will succeed in winning a World Cup one day. And you can see him slowly doing that. And he might be running into the limitations of his cattle in trying to build that expansive style of play. Like against Syria, it was a very expansive formation that he tried to use. So he might be running into those natural limitations. But what it does mean is that this particular group of players isn't doing as well as it possibly could if you had a more pragmatic approach. And I think it's that tension that the Australian football community is currently dealing with at the moment.
Is it selfish of Ange to make this call at this stage and let it be known? I can't imagine that he mentioned it to someone he trusts and then it got out.
My view is yes. I can't say it in any other way. When you take on the national team, it's more than just taking on a job. It's actually you're representing your whole sport. You're representing your country. So I think in that sense, yes, it was. And I certainly know that if it was myself, I would make sure that my whatever transition or whatever happens is very well planned, etc. But there are some occasions when coaches get the sack, and maybe he got the wind of that, and he's got a young family and it's his profession as well. So there's that other side as well that we have to consider.
Let me ask you this. Let's assume, for the sake of the thought experiment, that he didn't want it to get out. He mentioned it to someone, they broke a confidence, it's now gotten out. What should he do now? Should you come out and say, yes, I'm leaving, thereby knocking the stuffing out of people on the eve of a qualifier? Or do you say nothing about it and let the speculation go? I'm not sure there would be many good options in that circumstance.
I suspect he'll work out who he needs to talk to, and then he'll talk to those people. He won't be holding press conferences and media conferences just because his bosses tell him to. Let's talk about Timmy Cahill, because we should delight. Miller Jedinak's out, so I think the Socceroos they're lacking a little bit of on-field leadership, but not with Tim Cahill. And great coaching, by the way, to leave the old bloke on so long.
Yeah, it was. And also, what's that, his 50th goal now? I think on this program a few weeks ago, I might have said that only Wayne Rooney has achieved that for England. So let's not overlook what an achievement this is. And the fact that he scored the clutch goal at the clutch time when he hasn't been doing that lately. So this is a bit of a resurrection. It reminds me a little bit of Adam Gilchrist's century at the Wacker in that Ashes series, where he was in his twilight years and he came out and just did something extraordinary. That's what we've witnessed here. And the other aspect of this game, I thought, was that the Socceroos didn't really play a style that was built around Tim Cahill, right? They didn't cross the ball in as often as they have in the past. And when you've got Tim Cahill playing as your number 9, you would think the whole game plan is get it wide, boys, and whip it in and just let him do his thing. And they didn't do that. And yet he still managed to make himself dangerous.
Great nous and that athleticism, still got his vertical leap. But Gideon, he didn't box the flag.
No, but he did make the symbol of the T for a tremendous, extraordinary presence of mind in the ecstatic moment of scoring a goal to actually, think, oh, yes, must put in a plug for the sponsor.
It didn't make the broadcast, but they did get a photo of it. So they were questioning whether he'd done the wrong thing, but he didn't break any rules.
He didn't break any rules. And frankly, when you consider that we were actually helping in the process to advertise the team, which has been whose patron is a genocidal dictator. It probably wasn't the most egregious example of advertising going on.
Well, just a final word on Honduras. We've seen snippets of their play. Most of the headlines are about this is top 3 murder capital of the world. All of that sort of stuff, which I think mightn't really concern the players, but they'll be up against that home crowd there. it's going to be tough to win on the road.
It will be, yeah. I think the latest I heard was that Australia were planning on being based in Miami to try to avoid spending too much time in Honduras. Central American teams are always very difficult to beat. There's a lot of depth within those. You usually have the United States and Mexico, and then after that, and then daylight. The United States didn't even make it this time. So this is a very, very significant opponent.
Nor did the Netherlands. I mean, that just shows you how, how uncertain the environment is. We've already done better than them in a sense by not having been eliminated. Football is improving all the time, and it's an enormous challenge for any coach and any team to keep pace with that.
Now.